So the new PlayStation Plus tiers are indeed here, and it obviously was something I was very interested in. I had been following the saga going on with it from back when it was called PlayStation Spartacus to the whole, is it 50 hertz, is it 60 hertz versions of the game? I took my L on it. I made a video about it yesterday, but I was definitely interested in checking it out. Now that it's released in North America, I finally spent some time with it, and I want to give you guys my impressions, my thoughts, and sort of my review of it, because this is a big thing for a lot of people. A lot of PlayStation players have been looking for something similar to Game Pass. So is this something that you should end up checking out? Is it worth the upgrade? Is it worth your money? That's what we're going to talk about in this video. Yes, I had to bring the PS5 downstairs. Oh, you had to take your PS5 out. It's like, no, I play my PS5 a lot for Gran Turismo 7, so suck it. Suck it. So the PlayStation Plus. So with the PlayStation Plus stuff, I went with the premium edition, which is $119.99 a year. Kind of expensive, you know, 120 bucks a year. It's really not that bad when you break it down month by month. I did have a rollover of a current PlayStation Plus account, so I think it cost me like $25 to roll it over, and that is active until November. So I have plenty of time to mess around with this. Now, what this service was essentially doing is being something similar to Game Pass. We kind of always throw it back to Game Pass because that's kind of the standard when it comes to things like that. But I always thought the PlayStation library was a bit more vast than the Xbox library when it came to older stuff. And the fact that there was going to be new stuff included in this, I thought was a really good thing. They've added in a bunch of PS5 games, a ton of PS4 games. It's basically a merger between what PlayStation Now and PlayStation Plus brought to the table. A lot of this stuff was available on PlayStation Now, but for me personally, I never really liked PlayStation Now. When I first tried it out, it just wasn't very impressive to me. I had lots of issues with input lag because at that time, everything was streaming. So I was curious to see how this works. You can see the menu system here, how all the games are broken down. It's somewhat decent. I do feel like it's a little bit clunky. It was kind of hard to find specific games for specific systems. I think they should just do something kind of like where they show the icon of the system and then you click that and then you could just go into it. But whatever, this is, you know, at its very base. This is at its infancy, so I will cut it a little bit of slack. Checking out some PS1 titles, this was something that I was very interested in. Obviously, the whole 50 hertz versions of games definitely scared me off, but like I said, I was completely wrong on that. I apologize. It was just, you know, basing it on what information was out there, because God forbid Sony tells you what they're actually going to do. I started out with the original siphon filter because you all know I enjoy watching Gabe Logan run around in his crap-filled diaper, because that's what the animation looks like in that game. I don't know. I've never really liked the first Siphon Filter game. 2 and 3 I thought were really good. 3 was actually my favorite out of the PlayStation trilogy, but it was fun to revisit this game. I don't think it's held up very well, but it was nice to see how the game ran and how the game performed. And yes, the game does run at the proper refresh rate, so everything felt like it should. Now, does that make this a good game? No, like I said, it's definitely aged terribly, but I thought it was interesting to look at. There's some different things you could do. You'll see with some of the PS1 games, I'll switch back and forth between the different filters. There's the standard filter. There's a filter that sort of replicates a CRT TV with line scans and of course a bit of a blurrier resolution. And then there's a modern one. I didn't really see a huge difference between normal and modern. I don't know, maybe I'm just getting old and my eyes are playing tricks on me, but I didn't really see a huge difference in it. But they both did look very clean. All the textures themselves look very nice and crisp. Everything looks as it should. Whether or not that's a good look for you is just, you know, it's a product of the times. Moving on, I went over to Tekken 2 because I figured, well, if there's going to be any issues with input lag, if there's going to be any sort of issues with frame rate, this is the game that's going to do it. And once again, it was a very smooth and seamless experience. You just download these games directly onto your PlayStation 5, or I guess PlayStation 4 if you're still playing on that, and you simply play the games. They run as they should, they sound as they should, they look as they should, and they play as they should. Which, you know, once again, that's a good thing. I messed around a little bit more with the filters on this, and then I was like, okay, you know what? PS1 stuff does look very good. Moving on to PlayStation 2, it was decent. You know, I went ahead and got War of the Monsters, which is a cult classic game. If you've never played it, I definitely recommend checking it out. It's basically just like huge monsters and different sort of city landscapes battling it out. A really fun game, kind of like the Godzilla games that used to come out during around that time, but there's a bit of a better variety because they could just be more over the top with it. A franchise that I would love to see return. Now, the first thing I noticed with this is there are no filters that you can apply to the game. The game just runs as the game runs. There is no sort of classic filter or a modern filter or anything like that. So that kind of is worth noting, but the game itself did play as it should. A lot of these games that I'm playing, it's been a very long time since I've played these games, so forgive my piss poor gameplay mechanics with these games. It is what it is, but like I said, this ran brilliantly. Once again, it just downloaded it onto the system. I played the game, it was a very quick download, and I was impressed. Moving on to the PlayStation 3 side of things, this is where I kind of was a little bit worried, because back in my time when I played the PlayStation 3 stuff on PlayStation Now, it was terrible. There was so much input lag. The games ran horribly via the servers and stuff. It was just not a very good experience for me to play. I went ahead and checked out Resident Evil 4 since there's a lot of hoopla around Resident Evil 4 right now, as rightfully should be, because, you know, it's a super good game. And it was actually very flawless. Once again, I played terribly because I couldn't figure out the controls with the PS3 controller. I don't know. I like the gyro controls. Sue me. Like, sue me. The gyro controls are the best way to play this game. But it ran like it should. There was no hiccups or anything like that. And I'm kind of going to go back to something I talked about earlier in the video with my PlayStation 5 being downstairs. My router is upstairs. So if anything was going to sort of mess up with this, I felt like this is where it was going to mess up because it was streaming the game. I'm downstairs and my router is upstairs, but there was absolutely no hiccups in the time that I played with the game. Everything ran great. There was no input lag or anything like that. So when it comes to the retro stuff, I think they did a really good job. Of course, there's a ton of modern stuff on there as well. Tons of PlayStation 4 games are adding in PlayStation 5 games such as Returnal as well. So overall, I think it's a really good service. I think it has a lot of room to grow. And I think that's sort of the main thing I take away with this is, you know, this is in its infancy. This is day one of this service. And as it stands right now, it's pretty impressive. You get a large library of games from a variety of systems. I definitely want to see more older games added to the service, though. That's something I'm a bit concerned about. Right now, there's literally a handful of PS1 and PS2 titles, and that's something I feel needs to be expanded upon. I think they need to add more games to that service. Yes, some of these games haven't aged all that well, but that's one of the, you know, reasons why people will want this, because they can play their childhood classics or their teenage classics that they played back in the day. The PS2 and PS1 have such a vast library of games that I feel like that's something that Sony needs to definitely explore with this service. The PlayStation 3 stuff, like I said, it runs really well. And of course, you have all of the modern stuff that people are looking forward to. You can play Spider-Man, Returnal, all sorts of games, God of War 2018. So overall, it's definitely got a really good groundwork. It's got a really solid groundwork. It's just, how will this service look in 6 months? Sony themselves have said that they're going to be updating the service quite often. They're going to be adding more games in. They're going to be adding in games monthly. And then in the middle of the month, they're going to add more classic games to the service. But how many games are we going to get with that? You know, when you look at something like Nintendo Switch Online, obviously, it's a bit paltry in how many games you end up getting. It started out with a bang, and now it's kind of gone down to a bit of a whimper. One N64 game a month, if you're lucky, maybe a handful of Super Nintendo games that you never cared about. I think Sony definitely needs to go better than Nintendo does when it comes to releasing their classic games onto this service. Is it a Game Pass killer or a Game Pass replacement? I don't think so, but I don't think it's necessarily set out to be a Game Pass killer or Game Pass, you know, just to get rid of it or be a direct competition with it. I really feel like this is what Sony just wants to do to give more value to the consumers. Is it worth upgrading to? I think so. I think if you play your PlayStation 5, that's your main primary console. Like, why wouldn't you want a lot of games? Let's be realistic. While it is $120 a year, I mean, that's really less than two first-party games. Two first-party games on the PlayStation 5 are going to cost you, what, $140? Because they're $70 a piece. Whereas with this, you're getting a ton of games right off the bat. Now, whether or not, like I said, they continue to add stuff to the service, that's something I'm definitely going to keep my eye on. But as it stands right now, I am kind of impressed. I think Sony did a very solid job with this. I think the emulation that they're using is spot on. I think all of the games run and look as they should. The additional features, such as a rewind feature available in PlayStation 1 games, not available in PlayStation 2 games, might I add. But having a rewind feature in PlayStation 1 games is always a nice thing. You give people a little bit more incentive. You also have save states in the PlayStation 1 games. Not available in the PlayStation 2 as of yet, though. So it'll be interesting. I'm really curious to see the evolution of this service, the growth of this service, because I think right now it's got a very solid groundwork. So let me know in the comment section down below if you plan on checking out the PlayStation Plus tier system. Like I said, I went with the premium, the top dollar, because I wanted to be able to check out everything. There's all sorts of little extra stuff that they've added in there as well. There's like DLC packs and content packs for certain games that are like free to play and stuff that you can only get on there. You can get exclusive deals on the PlayStation Network store as well for games. A lot of newer games I saw on there had pretty steep discounts, you know, 10-15 bucks off, which, I mean, that's pretty good. You want to save money, especially in these times, because recession's coming soon, so you might as well stock up on some video games and possibly some canned beans and hunker down in the fort and get ready for things. But let me know if you plan on checking out this service in the comment section down below. Are you surprised that I'm not crucifying it? A lot of people seem to think, I did a little poll on Twitter and I was like, hey, you guys want me to talk about this? And they're like, yeah, we want you to rip it apart. And I was like, I'm not going to rip it apart. I actually think it's pretty decent. I actually think it's a pretty solid offering. It has a really good groundwork. It's just, how will it be built up? What's the future look like for this service? Maybe we'll revisit it in a couple months. And as always, guys, thank you for checking out this video. If you are indeed new to the channel, be sure to hit that subscribe button, like, comment, and share the video around. Let people know what PlayStation is indeed bringing to the table with their brand new service. And as always, I'll catch you guys on the next video. Later.